Right, wonderful. Okay. Ready?
Mhm.
All right. So, hi everyone. Welcome back, or welcome back. I'm the Antoinette, founder of the Beautifully Busy Mind and mom to a beautifully busy ADHD daughter. Here I discuss all things ADHD and how I transform my struggling ADHD daughter into a thriving college student. Today, we are discussing an especially important topic because we're diving into something that affects so many families, but often lives in silence, and that is the ADHD stigma in the Black community. The misconceptions, the judgment, the fear of labels, the pressure to just be strong, and the shame that can keep our children from getting the help they deserve. And as a mom who has lived this journey, my daughter's almost 20. I know how heavy it can feel watching your child struggle, while family members may insist it's, anything other than what they're truly dealing with, or they say that they'll just grow out of it, or that seeking evaluations is somehow a reflection of your parenting. And these beliefs don't come from a lack of love. They don't. They come from generations of survival, mistrust, and misunderstanding. But our kids don't need to just survive, they need to thrive. And so today, I've invited an incredible special education teacher who has worked for years with ADHD students, many of them from Black families. And she has seen firsthand how stigma, fear, and cultural expectations impact a child's learning and emotional well being. And so we're going to break this down honestly and gently. We'll talk about where these beliefs come from and how they affect our kids long term. And most importantly, how we can break the cycle and advocate confidently for our beautifully busy ADHD children. So, hi, Tangi. How are you today?
I'm great, great.
Wonderful. So, Tangi, how long have you been a special education teacher?
Let me see. I've been a teacher for 23 years. I've been working in special education probably about 10 of those years.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah.
So your education goes, like you have got like a master's degree, right, in
I got
education?
an education specialist,
Oh,
EDS.
okay. Oh, okay.
hmm
Okay. Well,
hmm
great, great. So what is the difference in a special education teacher and a teacher who isn't special education?
Special education teachers' focus is on kids who have disabilities in their classes.
Oh, okay.
It depends on the setting. They have and they either have general education teachers or special education teachers. So they focus on the kids that have disabilities in their classes.
Right,
And
right.
that's
Okay.
mainly their goal was to make sure they're successful in those classes.
Right, right. So you specialize in educating like neurodivergent students, and specifically like ADHD, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, which is our topic today. Yeah, my
Yes.
daughter Simone, she was always in the general population because she's
Mm-hmm.
ADHD, and
Mm-hmm.
but there was always a special education teacher within that class where she got a
Mm-hmm.
little extra attention. She had the
Yes.
exact same curriculum. She may have
Yes.
gotten a little
Yes.
bit more time on her test, stuff like that.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah. But
Mm-hmm.
all right. And for all of you listening who may not be overly familiar with ADHD, ADHD is short for attention deficit hyper disorder. And there was a time when there was both ADD and then there was ADHD. So now when you hear ADHD, it covers both.
Both.
And,
Mm-hmm.
and ADHD is considered a neurological difference, and it falls within neurodivergence. There are three types of ADHD: hyperactivity, inattentiveness, and a combination of the two. It is not considered a learning disability by the medical industry, even though it's lumped, in the education system, it's lumped together. It is a cognitive difference, a different wiring that is not always negative. It's not always negative, and that's why we want to really educate the Black community. It can actually be a superpower for some. There's a huge misconception that everyone with ADHD deeply suffers. The human brain is a complex communication network whereby messages are relayed between neurons. And in order for messages to be relayed, the brain requires two key neurotransmitters, also known as chemical messengers, called dopamine and noradrenaline. And in an ADHD brain, there is an irregulation of these neurotransmitters, resulting in a variety of symptoms, both positive and negative, that can have an impact on education, work, and relationships. My daughter, hers was the dopamine. She was naturally, she was just low in dopamine, very low in that. And ADHD can negatively impact the ability for some, but not all diagnosed with ADHD has learning challenges. Some are very high academic achievers. I have met some parents whose kids, were diagnosed with ADHD, but they had no academic challenges. So, Tangi, I'm sure your students are from culturally diverse backgrounds. Right, right. But I want to specifically discuss Black ADHD students because there are so many misconceptions, shame, denial, stigmas, and suspicion around this topic within the Black community. So, do you find that ADHD symptoms in Black students show up any differently than in other cultures?
I don't think so. When I go back to when I first started teaching, I knew nothing about ADHD. It was 2002, 2000,
Uh-huh.
and I remember teaching in an elementary school in Houston, Texas, and I had a student. Now I know it was ADHD, but it was a African American student and a Caucasian student, and they operated the same. And over the years, I haven't seen a lot of it. It might come out as something different, but it's not really different. It's not. I
Right.
haven't noticed that it's different at all. It's just
Exactly. Exactly.
no.
Yeah, I haven't necessarily heard of that it's any different. Now,
Mm-mm.
our community responds to it differently,
Yes,
but
yes,
but
yes.
yeah.
And I think
But
it's because we didn't hear about it until late. I
right,
guess.
right.
But I think we need
Exactly.
to understand it is neurological. It's not like if you look at a brain of a person that has ADHD and a regular, no another type of person, you will see that the two brains are different. So I think
Right,
that's
right.
the biggest thing they don't understand, that the brains are different.
Right, right.
Mhm.
Exactly. And so what are some of the most common misconceptions you hear from Black families about ADHD? I've got my theory, but want to hear what you have heard over the years.
The biggest thing that I hear is they are going to be labeled. They're not dumb. Um, Nobody needs to know my business. Stuff like that is
Right,
some of
right.
the biggest things.
Exactly. Yeah.
There's
I'll
nothing.
get
There's
into,
nothing wrong with him. He just needs some discipline or those types of things.
oh
I
yeah.
will
Oh my
say that
God.
boys. I find more boys have ADHD from my experience,
Right.
but
You know
those.
what? I have read that girls are often missed. Um,
Yes.
that's what I've heard in that
Mm-hmm.
girls, because ADHD is associated with, in
Mm-hmm.
with the hyperactivity part, that,
Mm-hmm.
a girl who's not hyperactive, that oftentimes her ADHD can be missed,
Mm-hmm.
so.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, yeah. I mean, I was undiagnosed ADHD as a teenager, and I wasn't
Okay.
hyperactive at all.
You was it focus, more focus?
Oh my gosh, yes. I
Yes.
could
Okay.
not stay focused in class to save my life. So I came across as an unmotivated student,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, but I wasn't hyperactive at all. So
Yes.
so
Right.
my teachers back then would have just thought that I just didn't care, I was
Right.
unmotivated, I was lazy, that type of thing.
Since I work
So
in a high school now, I'm very conscious of that, those types of things. Like I think of one student the other day. I said, you know that you have focus. You need to focus now. So you need to make sure you write your list down. You write it down on a piece of paper. So you have to teach them how to handle it. It's even
right,
if their
right.
parents don't accept it, you have to teach them how to handle it.
Right, exactly. Yeah, that's the biggest difference between myself and my daughter is that my daughter has learned the study habits for her learning
Mm-hmm.
style. And I
Mm-hmm.
grew up in the 80s, no,
Right.
you
There was
know,
nothing,
yeah, it was like you memorize it and you keep going over it until you got it memorized,
Right.
and that was the learning
It.
style for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
But
That's
yeah,
right.
some of the theory that I have, what I've heard over the years from families, from specifically
Mm-hmm.
Black families, is that um, it's it's a conspiracy against the Black community,
Mm-hmm.
that
Mm-hmm.
it's a way for doctors to make money.
Yes.
They're just trying to make money off of you, that type of
Mm-hmm.
thing. They're in cahoots with the pharmaceutical industry, that type
Mm-hmm.
of thing. I've
Mm-hmm.
even heard someone say that even the school districts are in cahoots with the pharmaceutical industry.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, yeah. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it baffles me just how different, culturally, because because of Simone's journey, I've spoken
Mm-hmm.
to families of different cultures,
Right.
and what I hear in the Black community is completely different.
Totally different. Totally
Yes.
different. And it's like, so when you send your child to their bedroom to clean up, and they come back and you told them to clean up and you said it, and they come back and they can't even remember what you said. You gave
Right,
them 3 or 4 things to do, and all they remember is maybe the last thing you said. And you do this on a regular basis, and you notice this on a regular basis. What do you think that is? And you have to ask them, what do you think that is? They can't remember anything but the last thing you said. So those are some of the things I try to ask him. He said, "Yeah, you know what? You're right. That happens all the time." He does not remember. She doesn't remember what I told her to do.
right,
So it's
right,
not, they have it's up, and they honestly cannot remember. It's like
right,
a
right.
blank face, like what? And that's how they look at you.
Right, right. Simone would be overwhelmed if
Oh,
you sent her to, just say, when she was, and this was more so when she was in elementary school. If we sent her to the room to clean up her room, she
okay.
would sit on her bed overwhelmed and she just wouldn't know where to
Wouldn't
start.
do
So
anything. Right, wouldn't
so
start.
so yeah, so we would literally have to go in there and be like, okay, let's start with this corner. Let's fold these clothes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
that's done.
Mm-hmm.
Now let's go over here to your drawers and put this in. I mean, it would have to be like one step
Step at a
type of
time.
instructions. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So
But the
so
kids would
and
normally they would get in trouble and get a whooping because they didn't do the 3 or 4 things their parents told them to do. But it wasn't their
exactly,
fault, really. It was that you need to give them
exactly,
one thing at a time. They can't, and then they come
exactly.
back and report, "Mom, I did what you told. I did that one thing. So what else you need me to do? Those are right on the board for them, steps. So
Right.
that's some strategies that they need."
Exactly, exactly. So,
Mhm.
I mean, is there a reason why you think that it's still seen, ADHD in the Black community is still seen as bad behavior, poor parenting, bad teachers, need just study more, just pay attention, or just a phase in the Black households? And do you have a theory as to why it's still looked at it that way?
I don't think I think parents see things in their children, and they keep it a secret.
Right. Okay.
And that's the only thing I can think of. They don't want that the whole labeling, but they don't realize if the child is behavioral, they're already labeled as a behavior, or it's
Right.
that type of thing. So it's
Right,
just
right.
right.
Exactly.
They already label if they have a behavior.
That's
So
true. That's true. Yeah, Simone wasn't bad behavior. Hers, again, it was focus, and it was
focus.
worse than mine ever
Mm-hmm.
was. And yeah, I mean, I'll say all her teachers from
Mm-hmm.
first through 12th, they were all great. Except
Mm-hmm.
for two. I can only think of
Mm-hmm.
two that were
Mm-hmm.
impatient and you had,
Mm-hmm.
no empathy, just,
Right.
at all. Excuse me. And and so they already, without knowing anything, they had already had their judgment against her. So,
Right, right, right. And I
so
think that
yeah.
when as a parent, you walk in and say, "My child has ADD." I suspect my child has
Uh-huh.
ADHD or ADD,
Uh-huh.
and I haven't gotten them diagnosed. I have a label. Even if you just tell the teacher that I suspect these things, you put them on notice to know that
Right.
they need to do certain things just to watch what's happening.
Right.
But to act like,
Right.
oh, it doesn't exist. I don't know what you're talking about. That means that you need me to treat them the way I treat everybody else at that point. You got to be vocal and you got to tell teachers and people that deal with your child how to respond to them.
Right, right. Yeah, I mean, before Simone was diagnosed, I would think it was a third grade because she wasn't diagnosed until the fifth grade. But her
Okay.
third grade teacher was like, she probably has a learning disability, and she would keep saying that, like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, well, kids with learning disabilities, that type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, people they're going to think what they're going to think,
Mm-hmm.
regardless,
Mm-hmm. Yes.
regardless. Yeah. But yeah, when
Mm-hmm.
I told my mom that my daughter was in speech therapy at age
Mm-hmm.
4, my mom went into full denial, saying
Really?
that, yeah, yeah, like, oh, no, 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 she's just quiet. She's just quiet. She'll grow out of it. And when I told her that Simone was diagnosed with ADHD in fifth grade, I mean, oh my gosh, she went into denial again, insisting like she does not have it. And, I was like, listen, mom, she has ADHD. And I'm going to get help for
Yeah.
her,
Mm-hmm.
because
Mm-hmm.
it's what's best for her. And so, she told me not to tell anyone in the
Anybody.
family.
Right?
Yeah, yeah. And I'm like, why not? It's
Right.
like, you know, and my niece's son, my mom calls me now, my niece's son is, way younger than
Mm-hmm.
Simone. So this was years later. So my mom calls me and tells me that my niece's son was diagnosed with ADHD. And again, my mom went into denial, no, they talk about he has ADHD, he knows his ABCs, he doesn't have it, that type of thing. And then
Mm-hmm.
my niece was really upset from what my mom
Mm-hmm.
told me. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
not close with this niece at
Mm-hmm.
all.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but I'm like, give me her phone number. I'll get, and yes,
I'll
her
call
number
her.
had changed.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'll call her and I'll, let her know about Simone, and I'll offer her some information. My mom refused to give me her number. She
What?
she refused to allow me to help
How
her out.
come?
She's like, I don't want anyone to know this. My niece, she said that she doesn't want anyone to know about this. And I'm like, what in the world? And I'm like, and I couldn't get past it. So I'm like, okay, fine, So still to this day, I have no idea if my niece's son ever received any assistance. And so what role do you think that the older generation in the Black community plays a role in it, or what?
Oh yes, they do. Oh yes, they do. I
Right.
think anybody before our generation did not acknowledge that anybody born before 60 something,
Uh-huh.
they don't acknowledge. No, they don't. No, 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 no.
Right, right. So do you think it has anything to do with like that generational mistrust of schools and the medical system?
Yeah,
Is it a mistrust?
yes, right. The syphilis experiment and all that kind of stuff. And for some
Wow.
reason, for some reason, when you go back, they think that it's more Black kids that are being diagnosed. But when you go look at national data, that's not true. It's more white
Right,
kids that are
right.
diagnosed.
Right.
Uh,
And yeah, yeah. I think more white families tend to, they're more open to the idea that, like, listen, this is what my kid has, and I'm going to get him
mhm,
help, that
that's
type of
right.
thing,
And they do it quickly, quickly,
yeah,
quickly,
very
quickly, quickly.
quickly,
Quickly. It's
very
not even
quickly.
some of them. I feel, some of them I feel like, oh, why don't you wait a little bit? No, no, no. I gotta nip this in the bud. And maybe
Right,
because they
right.
have a family history of it, I don't know, but they're very quickly because they
Yeah,
want their kid to be successful. They want the child to be
exactly.
successful. They want
Oh,
people to know they have this diagnosis, and they want their children to get help. So they get on it quickly, very quickly.
right, right. Some of the resources, the best resources that I found
Mm-hmm.
from for Simone was from white families,
Mm-hmm.
white moms who had
Mm-hmm.
what already was on that journey a little further
Mm-hmm.
ahead. And it was always from, I got such great advice,
Right.
while, a lot of Black families, specifically my family, that was like just silence, shame, denial,
Mm-hmm. Right.
just didn't want to talk about it. And it's like,
Right.
I don't get it, that type of thing.
Mm-hmm. And
And
the other
right,
thing I've noticed that they go to sometimes they go to the psychiatrist and they get medicine. And the
hmm,
black family has, they have issues with the medicine. And I always ask the question is, so if your child had a heart murmur or heart defect, you're saying if the doctor tells you that, you're not gonna give them medicine for that? How would you
right,
respond to that? Because what happens is if they have a medical diagnosis of something, you try the different meds to see which one works best for your child. Not just say, I don't want them on Ritalin or I don't want them on Concerta. You find the one that's the best for your child. And if they had a
right.
heart defect or hearing problem, you would get the medicine they needed and you would try the medicine until you find the one that works. And that's my
Right.
suggestion to everybody.
Right, exactly, exactly. Yeah, Simone was on Concerta,
Mm-hmm.
between Concerta or the generic form of it,
Mm-hmm.
from third grade up until ninth, and then it just stopped working. And
Okay.
so we went the holistic route.
Okay, good.
And
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, I would meet the same thing. Anytime I got any pushback, it was from, our community.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
they're like, "Are you sure you want her on that?" And this and the other. Or I would meet someone whose child was ADHD, a black family, and they're
Mm-hmm.
like, "I am not doing any meds," which is, that's
Fine.
to each his own. That's
That's
fine.
right. That's right.
That's fine. But again, it was kind of just it was a stigma.
It
And
was.
the meds in gosh, I mean, when we put her on it in the third grade, she saw there was an immediate notice in the
Okay.
difference in her focus. I mean, her teachers
Mm-hmm.
saw it immediately, and we hadn't even
Mm-hmm.
told her teachers that she was on
Okay.
anything. And
Mm-hmm.
I get a text like no, excuse me, an email like the week after.
Mm-hmm.
And, one of the teachers was like, everyone is just saying that Simone just needs to be so much more focused. And I'm like, well, she's on meds now. And they're like, oh, okay, okay. But
Mm-hmm.
she could read, but she could focus better reading.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember after when she started on the meds, and she was just sitting there reading a book chapter, and she
Mm-hmm.
was like, wow, mom, this book is so interesting. And she was never able to focus before. She just couldn't focus. And
So I was a reading specialist, and kids that had focus problems, it would show up in their reading ability. It
right,
always that shows up in reading
right,
all the time. If you can't track print because your brain is doing this, or you gotta look over here and look over there. Reading is going to be a problem. Math is going to be a problem because you gotta be able to retain information for math. To
right.
you gotta carry this number, do this number, multiply this by this and this, and you can't do that if you can't focus. And it shows up
Exactly.
in all of that. It shows up.
Exactly. Yeah, you can't retain it. Simone would have a hard time retaining the information.
Mm-hmm.
Like she would just say if you explain it to her on Monday, thinking and you feel like she got it on
Mm-hmm.
Tuesday, it was like she had never seen it, ever.
Right.
So
Right.
yeah. I mean, it was it made a world of difference.
It
But
did.
it stopped working when she was in the ninth grade. I guess, her
Mm-hmm.
body changed and
Mm-hmm.
hormones or whatever. And so we went the holistic route, and
Mm-hmm.
that started working also.
Oh,
But
good.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
You did
But
something. You did something. You did something. That's the key. Do
exactly,
something.
exactly, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Right, right.
Mm-hmm.
So
I had a
yeah.
student, I remember he used to come, I used to have to hold his keys, his house keys to the house. This is a high school student, 11th to 12th grade, ninth to 12th grade. He would bring me his house keys so that I could keep his keys so he could have them at the end of the day to go home because he could not remember what to do with his keys. He would leave them places in the school building.
Oh,
And
wow.
and you tell him, just keep them in your pocket. No, Miss English, I can't keep them in my pocket. He just couldn't do it. So I would keep his keys or in some important notebook or something like that because he just could not. And to this day, he's 25 years old. And I talked to him about a month ago. He said, "Oh, it's bad. Miss A is bad. I said, what? He said, now I have a big board in my bedroom or in my house. I got a dry erase board. And for important stuff like my bills and stuff, I have to write it down. I said,
Right.
I used to try to teach you that in high school and you just would not.
Right.
But he couldn't get it. But now his lights are getting cut off and stuff like that because he's missing
Right.
dates. He's missing
Right.
dates. So he's
Right.
understanding this is
Exactly.
what I need to do. I have to do this in order to keep my life straight. So finally he has it.
Exactly. Exactly. That is my biggest advice to parents is that the younger you start with the resources and support, the better, because
Mm-hmm.
this just is going to spill over into their adult years, into the
It is.
relationships, to their finances,
Mm-hmm.
into their job. I've heard of
Yes.
ADHD adults not being able to maintain jobs, or
Yes.
they have more difficulty on jobs, so
Mm-hmm.
so
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Simone started with that board, like you say. I want
Mm-hmm.
to say her junior year, and so she
Okay.
had, she always had one up in her room
Mm-hmm.
for assignments that were due, and she has one up
Mm-hmm.
in her apartment now and stuff like that.
Good. Mm-hmm.
But
But
yeah, yeah,
you have to do those kinds of things. I tell them to I said, use this thing right here. It's called a phone. You have a calendar. You have notes you can put on your phone. You have to use a tool to help you keep up with things because it's going to affect your life. You're gonna miss
right,
important dates and all kinds of things. And it's just you gotta have strategies. And the earlier you start, the better. But if you ignore it for years and say ain't nothing, there's nothing wrong with the child, that means you're gonna start late with
right,
those
right.
strategies.
Exactly, exactly.
Mhm.
Yeah, and the great thing about it is this generation there's so many apps now, like scheduling apps and
Yes.
calendar apps and stuff like that.
Yes.
So yeah, yeah, so they
Mhm.
definitely have it much better than we had it.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Right,
So
right,
true. So true.
right, right. But yeah, but this infamous and mysterious word called the label,
Mm-hmm.
I don't want my child to be labeled. That is a very, very common fear.
Mm-hmm.
And, what exactly, is this quote unquote label, and where did this narrative come from? I raised an ADHD daughter who's almost 20, and she's thriving now. And the idea of a label just never crossed my mind during her childhood. I mean, I was far more concerned about the negative impact of her not receiving the needed resources.
Mm-hmm.
But this mysterious label or this negative cloud, just it never affected her. I mean, it didn't follow her anywhere. So
Mm-mm.
what exactly is this label? Where do you think it came from?
I don't know where it came from, but it's been around forever. Forever. No, and I only hear it about in our community. I don't hear it in
Right,
other communities about a label. I really don't hear it. It's just
right,
I'm
right,
not going to do this because I don't want them labeled. I don't want the government knowing nothing about my business. Just all those types of things. But I always ask, do you know what kind of resource you can get from the government that you
right,
don't have to
right,
pay for? My
right.
goodness, that you
Exactly. Exactly.
why wouldn't you want an extra person in the classroom that's going to come to your child and say, don't forget to do this, write this down? Why wouldn't you want an extra person in the classroom that's going to remind the genetic teacher, oh, Michael gets extra time on his test? Why wouldn't you want the person to remind somebody that, oh, he gets an extra time to do his project? Why wouldn't you want that? Why wouldn't you want that? I don't know. Why you wouldn't?
Right, right. So, as an educator, you're saying that there is no such thing as a label that follows them for the rest of their life.
Uh-uh.
Okay.
Mm-mm.
Okay. Okay, so this is coming from a seasoned educator, over 20 years. There's no label. There's no such
What's in your
thing.
head? Yeah, the labor's in your head.
Exactly, exactly,
Mhm.
exactly. So, how would you suggest a parent overcome the fear that an ADHD diagnosis would lead to their child being labeled? I mean, any suggestions?
Mm. Well, ask your child how your child feels about school, and that
Mhm.
should help you. Well, that should help you decide whether or not you want your child to get help. Ask the
Right,
child how do they feel about school, and know a lot of times the kids don't like school or they're struggling in school because they don't get help. They need the extra help, and those types of when people know are aware of things, you get the extra attention. You get just get the extra attention from people.
right.
It's just
Exactly,
how it
exactly.
is.
Right,
You gotta
right.
you gotta make it the situation work for your child. You gotta think about what's best for your child and not your own emotional stuff. Because a lot of times it's personal and emotional stuff that we have and not don't
Right.
have anything to do with the child at all.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah, there was I mean, I will say I do think that or that there was a time if a kid was considered special education,
Mm-hmm.
and just say they may have been like on my level or my daughter's level, and
Mm-hmm.
the education system, just say back in the 60s or the
Mm-hmm.
70s, they may have put that child in
Mm-hmm.
in classes with kids with severe developmental, disabilities.
And,
You know,
and
and so a parent may, and I know my daughter never
mm-hmm.
belonged there. I would want her
Mm-hmm.
to learn the exact same curriculum. I want her to
Right.
be around,
Mm-hmm.
students who are more like her. More, I would
Yes.
like her to have experience with students that are neurotypical.
Yes.
um and then also, you remember our generation, we
Mm-hmm.
used to joke about the short bus.
Yes.
And you're right, right. And the special education kids that were on the short bus. So there may have been a possibility that I would have had to ride the short bus. My daughter would have had to ride a short bus, even
Mm-hmm.
though we are not the kid in the wheelchair and all of that. So
Right.
I think that's one of my theories, that I think that a lot of Black families still live there, like, oh no, and it's like it's
And
no.
you might be right about that short bus, because
uh,
nowadays they don't want you on the short bus. They don't want you on that special education bus because it's more money that you got to spend. And for the
Right,
most part, if you're not in a wheelchair, Down syndrome, cerebral palsy, severely autistic, so way what they call level 3, 4, whatever it is, way over there, you're not going to be on that bus. You're going to be on the bus. You're going to be in class with everybody else. If you got
right,
ADHD, nobody's
right,
in special classes with ADHD. There's you
right,
in class
right.
with everybody else. Nobody knows that you have ADHD in the class.
Exactly.
Nobody knows it other than the teachers that are in the class. Unless you tell somebody, they're not going to know. They're not going to know.
Exactly. Yeah. ADHD, Simone's IEP was always considered like medical records, so because of HIPAA laws, they can't share it with anyone, They can't even share it with another teacher that's not her teacher.
That's right.
It's
Mm-hmm.
considered highly confidential, like
That's right.
like medical records. And
Mm-hmm.
so that is, I think that's something that a lot of families just don't know. I remember when I would have my parent teacher meeting, um, for Simone, and when they would pull up her IEP or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
on the screen, they would shut
Mm-hmm.
the door, that type of thing. Yeah, so no one is going to know. No, it's so
So
it's the same thing.
when I was in the classroom, it was two teachers, right? And I would
Hmm.
make an appointment. And normally it's probably about, we would have a class of about 25, 30. 10 of them had IEPs, 10 kids,
Hmm.
but nobody would know who had the IEP because I would go to the gen ed kids. I had and the kids with the IEP, same conversations. Are you doing this? Are you doing that? But then the child that had the IEP, if they had accommodations, they would get the accommodations and I would do that. But the kids wouldn't know what was going on. They just wouldn't know. And it's not something you don't volunteer the information. They had no reason to know. And sometimes
Exactly.
even when if you would pull, they had small group testing. Sometimes I would pull the friends out too, so that it could look even, so the kids
Right.
wouldn't feel like they were different. Just to
Right.
help. So I don't know. I don't know.
Right.
People just gotta. They don't understand what's going on in school nowadays.
Right. Right. Exactly.
They don't understand.
Exactly.
They don't
Right.
understand.
Right. So,
Mm-hmm.
so in 2025, there are just so many resources for ADHD kids and teens.
Mm-hmm.
And my family, we took advantage of all the free resources provided by the school, and even, a couple provided by the state.
Mm-hmm.
But most of the resources we did on our own. Also,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of extra that was
Mm-hmm.
out of pocket and very expensive. So I do understand that out of pocket resources may
Mhm.
be discouraging to many Black families because I
Mhm.
mean it, I will honestly say that majority probably would never be able to afford it.
Mhm. Mhm.
Simone's private school tuition was even our share of it because she had an IEP, the state of
Mhm.
Georgia um, paid for almost half of her
Okay.
private school tuition. But
Mhm.
our half was still more than our mortgage payment. Now, we don't live in a mansion, but it was
Right.
still more than our mortgage payment. So it was like we had two mortgages,
Yeah, it's a
for
sacrifice.
because she was in
Mhm.
private school
Mhm.
her high school year,
Oh,
and
was she?
then what was that?
I said, oh, was she? I didn't realize that.
She definitely was. And
Mhm.
but before that, she was in an excellent charter school that I
Mhm.
mean, it was like a private school, but they
Mhm.
went up to the eighth grade.
Mhm.
And then her private tutors were so expensive. They were upwards of $95 an hour. She had
Mhm.
multiple private tutors per
Mhm.
per month, and when you add up that cost, that was like
It's
a high
expensive.
end luxury car. I mean
Mhm. Mhm.
it very expensive. So it was like, okay, we've got a second house, and we've
And a
got
high-end luxury car.
and a high-end luxury car. So,
Mhm.
but what are some of the key free resources you see family members, Black families avoid most due to stigma or fear of shame and labeling?
Free resources.
That's provided through the public school system.
Oh, like one of them is if they have need some kind of therapy, OT,
Right.
occupational therapy, speech therapy.
Mhm.
Those are two of them that they have opportunity to have access to.
Have you seen that anyone has refused the IEP?
Um, Hello, you there?
I'm here.
It's usually husband and wife not agreeing is
Oh,
normally
okay.
what I found.
Right.
If
Yeah,
they're
I
refusing
I
something.
believe that.
Hmm. The wife is usually let me do this. The husband's usually no. We're gonna wait a while.
Oh,
That type
wow.
of thing. Yes, yes.
Right.
So
Yeah,
those
I
are a
mean
couple
that.
of free
Yeah. And
resources.
again, just for the general public out there, an IEP is an individual education
Education
plan.
plan.
And
Mm-hmm.
your child is still learning the same curriculum, but
Mm-hmm.
it's a different plan. So Simone's plan gave her more time on her test,
Mm-hmm.
specifically her standardized,
Mm-hmm.
standardized test, but even
Mm-hmm.
some of just the tests in her class, she may have gotten a
Mm-hmm.
little bit more time.
Mm-hmm.
um what else did
Did she
Simone?
get notes, study guides ahead of time and stuff like that?
She did not get that. Now,
Okay.
she didn't get that. Yeah, I'm not sure what else they offer with IEPs, but you just said, you get study notes.
Study
And
notes.
what else do, what
They can get
other
vocabulary. They can get if
advantages?
they like in elementary school, they have a lot of vocabulary. They can get the vocabulary words ahead of time, a week ahead of time.
Okay.
Um, they get extra time to do their projects and stuff like that. Sometimes they can get a whole alternative project if they find that something is heavy reading and they've struggled with their reading. They can get a project where they can do a PowerPoint instead of doing an essay, stuff like that. Those types of
Oh, okay.
things. Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So an IEP is actually to your child's advantage, not to his
Mm-hmm.
disadvantage.
Right.
So,
Right.
so parents, if you have the opportunity for an IEP, take it, and then
Mm-hmm.
some my daughter, because the the private school payment assistance that she got through the state of Georgia, um, we got that because she had an IEP.
Mm-hmm.
If she did not have an IEP, we would not have qualified for it, and it was not income based because it wasn't income based at all. It was IEP
Nothing with
based.
an IEP is income based. Nothing. No
Yeah,
service.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
exactly. And
Mm-hmm.
the the financial benefit that she got through the state of Georgia that paid for part of her private school had nothing to do with income. We did not submit a single financial
Hey, so.
document. The one thing about it is the person who told me about it's called a Georgia Special Needs Scholarship. The woman that told me about this, they were millionaires. And she had a son that had a severe case of hyperactivity. And he was in an extremely expensive private school. I mean, even with the scholarship, the part that would come from the state, it was still out of our budget.
Right.
But my goodness, I mean, they lived in a multi-million-dollar house, and she told
Mm-hmm.
me about it. I had no
Mm-hmm.
idea. So I'm like,
Anybody
thank
can
you.
qualify for those perks.
Exactly,
There are
exactly,
options for everybody, and it's you gotta seek them out, and it's there. That's been around a
exactly,
while. Mm-hmm.
exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Right,
Yep,
right,
you gotta want it.
right, right.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there is a popular YouTube psychologist, and I won't say his name, but I know you know who he is. I cringe every time I hear his advice to Black families on ADHD. He's filled with conspiracy theories.
And lies.
He blames the teachers, he blames the school
Mm-hmm.
districts, he blames the
Mm-hmm.
doctors. He even
Mm-hmm.
offers like template letters on how to dispute any ADHD claims. And
Mm-hmm.
and again, I cringe at the thought of where Simone would be had I listened to any rhetoric like this. I mean, I would have allowed her to so unnecessarily suffer. And
Mm-hmm.
she wouldn't be where she is now. And I actually have met some families who have listened to his advice and went into denial
Really?
and disputed it. They dispute and guess what? The issues with their kids did not go away.
Mm.
Right.
They
And so
don't. They don't. They do not go away. And as the kids
exactly.
matriculate through school, they go from middle school to high school. It becomes worse. It shows up more, and the
Right.
stress of it all shows up more. And a
Oh my
lot of the
goodness, yes.
kids, they start self-medicating because they need these credits to graduate, and they can't focus.
Oh,
So it
wow.
becomes a bigger problem when it's not addressed. But so
Wow.
I know what
Wow.
you're talking about, but no. Mm-mm.
Well, yeah, and I always tell parents it's best to address this as young as possible.
Mm-hmm.
So, you pretty much, I think you answered my question of like what happens when families refuse IEPs, evaluations, or therapy out of fear of labels, and what are the long-term effects. I think you really did answer it already.
Mm-hmm.
Just a second ago. Is there
Mm-hmm.
anything else you want to add to that of what have you seen in your career as just that teenager that has
I think
never
I think when you don't start early, when you know something's different and you don't start early, their self-esteem gets torn up. They have to feel
yes.
confident. If you start early, letting them know this is what we have to do because of this. Mommy does, the teacher's doing this because of that. If they get used to that as a young child, when they get to middle school and high school, their confidence is already there and they're not rejecting it. Because what I found that I had kids that would throw stuff at me because their parents wanted them to have an IEP because they weren't used to it. And then they would get mad because you got this woman trying to make sure I have what I need and I
Right.
don't want to be bothered with her. Because they to do that to a seventh grader, it's different when they get to middle school. It really is different when they get to middle school. I don't know if you saw
Right.
that in Simone, but middle school, seventh grade, that stuff has to be in place already because middle school is horrible for them.
Right. Right. The wild thing about it is, Simone has always had so much support. I mean, so
Mm-hmm.
much. And she had our patience. She knew she was supported. But just like you say, the effect on their self-esteem, my goodness, she
Mm-hmm.
was so used um to not succeeding,
Mm-hmm.
and then she would watch her friends catch on fast,
Mm-hmm.
and it just tore through her self-esteem,
Yeah.
and that's with all the support in the world. And
Mhm.
And so I can't imagine where she'd
Oh, not
be
having that.
if she didn't have, if she, just say if she had
Right.
been raised by my mother, and we weren't there for whatever reason, and she was raised by her grandmother, my mom
Mm-hmm.
specifically. Oh my goodness, I can't imagine. Because the only thing my mom would have ever known how to do was to yell and scream if the teacher called and said that her work wasn't done and this, and the
Right.
other, that type of thing.
Right. If you, as a parent, you keep hearing people say to you, Michael didn't finish his assignment today. Michael was talking a lot in class. Michael didn't. He left his notebook in his second period class. Those are all things. If you start hearing those from kindergarten, first, second, you hear that consistently on a regular basis. You might need to look at something.
Right.
What's going on with your
Right.
child?
What I found was Simone is that she would procrastinate on
Yes.
things that if it overwhelmed her, if she didn't understand it and it overwhelmed her, she would just procrastinate on it because she would be too afraid to ask for help.
Yes.
Because she was like, it makes me look stupid.
Mm-hmm.
And then she her her first experience with a teacher that wasn't, just like I say, it was only two teachers
Mm-hmm.
throughout 12 years that
Mm-hmm.
weren't the best. But
Mm-hmm.
her fifth grade math teacher, she
Mm-hmm.
recalled her, this woman being so impatient and eye
Mm-hmm.
rolling and all of that. So she learned to not ask for help after this experience. So even just say the first 2 years of high school, or I won't even say the first 2 years, junior high school up until maybe the first 2 years of high school, she just wouldn't ask for help. So what she would do
Mm-hmm.
is just procrastinate, procrastinate, procrastinate. Anything that just overwhelmed her, she would just procrastinate on it.
Mm-hmm.
And then she would start it at the last minute, the night
Mm-hmm.
before, or maybe
Mm-hmm.
2 nights
Mm-hmm.
before, and
Mm-hmm.
she would be so overwhelmed and she would be
Mm-hmm.
crying. And so she would
Mm-hmm.
call me in her room. I'd have to help her out. Um,
Mm-hmm.
or she would throw some junk, I mean,
Together.
garbage together and turn it in.
Yes.
And so her
Mm-hmm.
teacher would be like, "What is this? Did she even follow directions?" And so
Mm-hmm.
for many years, I didn't understand. I'm like, Simone, why aren't you just trying your best? Why aren't you
Mm-hmm.
trying? That type of thing. And then I realized it was self-esteem. It was very low
Mm-hmm.
self-esteem.
Mm-hmm. Because she didn't feel like she was going to do it the way that the teacher wanted it, so she wasn't going to start at all. Just she was just stuck. It's called being stuck. You just stuck.
Right, right.
She was
Exactly.
stuck.
It was actually her ninth grade algebra teacher that told me, she was like, listen, it has nothing. Well, let me back up. Her fifth grade teacher
Mm-hmm.
told me that she'd probably always be a slow processor. Her
Mm-hmm.
next bad teacher was eighth grade history teacher. Simone didn't tell me this until maybe her senior year in high school, that he told
Mm-hmm.
her that um he they were in his class, they were going around the class, and all the kids were naming the colleges they wanted to go
Mm-hmm.
to. And so when they got to her, she wasn't going to say anything, and when they got to her, he took it upon himself to tell her that,
Mm-hmm.
university level was not the best option for her. And so by the time she gets to high school, she is just her
Mm-hmm.
academic confidence was just shattered. It was just really low.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but it was her ninth grade algebra teacher that told me that, she's like, you know what, mom, it's not her lack of ability at all, because she can do
Mm-hmm.
it. It's like it's
Mm-hmm.
her lack of confidence. She has
Confidence. Mm-hmm.
very low academic confidence. And
Mm-hmm.
so so that's why we figured it out like in ninth grade. But so yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they gotta have the confidence, and you gotta start putting that in them early, and
Right,
that
right.
fussing at them at first, second grade and third grade when
I
you
know.
know it's a problem and you choose as a parent not to do anything about it. By the time they get to middle school, it's shot,
Right.
and that's
And
where
a lot
it shows up a lot.
Right, right. And
Mm-hmm.
oftentimes the parents don't even know it's a problem. They may think that they're just not trying hard enough.
Right.
They're
Mm-hmm.
being lazy. God
Mm-hmm.
forbid, they have a high achieving neurotypical
Right.
sibling, or both
Oh, you're
parents,
right.
or both parents were high achieving neurotypical
Mm-hmm.
students. And
Mm-hmm.
so they can't relate to this child at all. And they start
Girl.
comparing,
Like, where
you
did you
know,
come from? I don't even know where you came from. That's kind of stuff they
right,
say. I don't even know where you came from.
right.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. It's like, you
Mm-hmm.
know what, Jamal didn't need that much help. Why does Keisha
Mm-hmm.
need that? It's
Right.
like, she just needs to, study
Buckle
more,
down. Buckle down. Maybe I need to
exactly.
take you out of baseball or soccer
Right,
uh,
exactly.
because you're not focused enough. That kind of thing.
Right, exactly.
Mhm.
Exactly.
But when I talk to like the coaches in high school, the kids that some of my kids that are ADHD, it shows up on the football field. It shows up on the football field, and they
Wow.
tell me they'll come to me and say, "What's his accommodations? What's his eligibility category?" And I say ADD. They say, "Oh my, that's what it is," and they'll tell
Wow.
me it shows up on the football field because
Wow.
they forget the plays.
Oh, wow. Okay,
They can't
wow.
retain what the play was, so it shows up in sports.
Wow. Wow.
It does.
Huh.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Wow. I would have, man, I
It shows up.
I would have never guessed that.
It shows up. I was shocked too, but as soon as I
Right,
said, "Oh, that's what's going on," it
right,
shows up
right,
on the football field.
right. I
Mm-hmm.
know. But I know no two ADHD journeys are the same, but
Oh
I
no.
always refer back to my daughter because it was our very long firsthand experience. And
Mm-hmm.
so I raised my ADHD daughter to never look at her journey with any shame or stigma. I even encourage her to see it as a superpower because it can be if nurtured.
Mm-hmm.
And examples of those who turned it into superpowers is, there's a billionaire, Sir Richard Branson. He
Mm-hmm.
is ADHD. Bill Gates, the greatest basketball player of all time, Michael Jordan, was diagnosed with ADHD as a child. The two most
Mm-hmm.
successful Olympic athletes of all time, Simone Biles and Michael Phelps, are
Mm-hmm. You talked
ADHD.
about it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Damon John, ADHD, and Will Smith, Whoopi Goldberg, and so many more. So I strongly believe that had Simone seen shame or stigma in my eyes or my spirit, she would have assumed that identity of less than and
Right.
limitation. And so I am a firm believer that the identity we walk in on a daily basis impact our life from
Mm-hmm.
so from your experience, um how does the stigma and the shame affect a child's self-esteem and identity over time, like a child who knows their ADHD,
Mm-hmm.
and they have been conditioned to see it as shameful. Have you seen any cases of that?
I don't see it now like I did in previous years.
Okay.
It all
Okay.
depends on how the parents take it, how the parents react to them and respond to them, how the parents acknowledge them.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
if the parent is working with them on a regular basis, it's different than when they don't have any support at all.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay,
so if
well,
you
good.
nurture that with your child, they'll be fine. But if you don't, it's not. It's gonna be a challenge.
Right. Well,
They're gonna
great,
be
great. I'm
because then they'll be in denial too, and then they won't. They'll just think they can't do something instead of
right,
addressing. This is a brain cognitive. Your brain is different from other kids, and no, you can't not do this, but you can do it this way. You have to give them
right.
options, stuff like that. So I
Yeah,
think it
yeah.
depends on the parents.
Yeah, I remember when Simone started working with the special education teachers, and
Mm-hmm.
they would present and like organize her
Mm-hmm.
lesson, the exact same information, a little different than
Mm-hmm.
the neurotypical kids. And I
Mm-hmm.
remember thinking like, wow, I would have never known to do that, so
Mm-hmm.
I was really grateful that it's like, I'm really happy for this resource, because my way of teaching her would have been like, okay, memorize it. Just
Mm-hmm.
go for it,
Mm-hmm.
until you've got it memorized.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah.
They use a lot of graphic organizers, visuals for kids that have the ADHD. A lot of them.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
The high school that she went to was a project-based learning high school,
Mm-hmm.
academic model. So they
Mm-hmm.
believed in learning by doing. So it was
Mm-hmm.
like full immersion.
Mm-hmm.
And that definitely was best for her. That was also how I learned best, is like, and listen, until I start doing this, I start
Mm-hmm.
working in it and practicing it,
Mm-hmm.
you can count it out. I'm not going to hold on to this just reading it out of a book,
Right.
that type of thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It makes sense. It makes sense. A
Right,
lot of
right,
people that way.
right, right.
Even people that don't have ADHD
Right,
have to
exactly,
do it.
exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Because I have seen other academic models where they offer immersion, whether it's on a college campus or high school,
Mm-hmm.
whatever, and it's
Mm-hmm.
not specifically for neural
Mm-hmm.
divergence. It's also for neurotypicals. That
Yes.
immersive experience.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think that's why some in high school we have this. We have career technical classes for career, career focused classes, and those a lot of kids do well with those because it's doing a lot of it, like
Right,
the
exactly.
audio visual classes. We have audio visual tech class, and the kids are out there making their movies with the cameras, and they're doing something, and they learn it as they do it. So I think that's why a lot of kids are successful with that.
Right, right, exactly.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, as I mentioned earlier, I'm ADHD and my symptoms were mild but manageable. I had attention issues, but no depression. My daughter,
Mm-hmm.
on the other hand, was far more severe. It led to very low academic confidence, which, had a domino effect, and it went into, it led to other areas of her life of low self-esteem, social issues, depression, and anxiety. And according to the website Medical News Today, untreated ADHD can also lead to a reduced lifespan, men by 6.78 years and women 8.64 years. Not specifically because ADHD itself, because it's not a deadly disease, it's not a degenerative disease, but it's due to the unmet needs and
Mm-hmm.
modifiable risk factors such as substance abuse, tobacco
Mm-hmm.
use, depression, and
Mm-hmm.
and even the risk of suicide. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and you mentioned a little earlier, and you could add to this, but what does untreated or unsupported ADHD, what from your experience, look like in adolescents and young adults? You talked about how you saw what you've experienced with kids
Yeah.
dealing
Now
with it.
they're self-medicating a lot now. That's what I'm
Wow.
seeing. And the actual verbally, because last week I talked to the student, Miss A, I gotta come to school and get some work done. So they self-medicate in the morning time before they come to school. Sometimes they can make it to the end of the day, sometimes they don't. Then they end up expelled from school and they're just
Wow.
self-medicating with different things.
And
I
what are
see a
some
lot
of
of
those things you've
vapes.
noticed?
I see a lot of vapes now. THC vaping is a big deal in our schools. Um,
Wow.
it's going to be
And
interesting to see the data of how. I was in a meeting last week and I asked one of the student services persons what was the biggest reason why people are getting suspended or expelled, I should say. And she says it's the vaping. Everybody's vaping now. And you talk to the kids, they'll tell you, I need to calm down. I'm too jittery. I need to focus in class. I can't focus in class, or I'm too hyper, or I'm too something. And they'll tell you they vaping. That's what they're doing, and that's the reason why they're doing. That's what the words they say to me. It's always something, and it's because
but
it's an unmet need. It's an unmet need, and they are
right,
trying to get
right.
by. Mm-hmm.
Wow, so vaping, I can see maybe the other like drug abuse, um, maybe even tobacco. I mean, uh,
I don't see tobacco
cigarettes, things
anymore.
like that.
It's vaping and marijuana is what I'm seeing. Something soothing, calm me down. Is what I'm seeing.
Wow. And
And I mean,
that
they're very honest about what and some of them get caught, and then they'll tell you. And I ask questions. I ask questions about why are you doing
right,
this? Why are you bring this to school? Why are you bring? You knew you're gonna get caught. It's a chance of getting caught. Why would you do that? And the chances they take, they'll go to the bathroom and vape and THC, and it's all in their clothes, and they walk back to class. I'm like, you
wow.
came back to class smelling like this stuff. What did you think was going to happen?
Oh my
And
God.
to take that kind of risk, knowing you're going to get expelled now because you had to have it during the school day. They tell me especially with the vaping, is more potent than just marijuana. Something about the chemical in a vape is horrible. I don't know what it is, but the chances they take with a vape is they'll go to the bathroom, come out the bathroom smelling like the stuff, and then to go to class knowing you're gonna get expelled, or knowing you're gonna do that. And I just don't understand. The brain must be having something seriously going on that you
Right.
know that you're gonna get expelled and you go do it anyway.
Right, right. And,
It's like
and what I,
stealing out your mama's purse and she's sitting there watching you. You know what I mean? Or going to
right.
steal your mother's car and she sees it's not in the driveway and you know there's a cost. I mean, it doesn't make, I don't know. It doesn't make any sense to me. It's
Yeah, and my theory with that would be, they are in survival mode. Their brain is in survival mode. Just like you said, there's just this unmet need. And it's not being met, and they're desperate to have it met, and they're not thinking rationally.
mm-mm, mm-mm,
And I remember even Simone saying, she's like, when you're depressed and all, you're not thinking, you just don't think rationally, when you're feeling
mm-hmm,
really low. And
mm-hmm.
so yeah, so I mean, that really breaks my heart,
Me too. I get so
and
frustrated.
right. And it
Stay.
makes me more and more grateful, that I was
Mm-hmm,
chosen to be Simone's mom, because
mm-hmm,
if anybody else, someone else who just didn't get that, they either don't have the patience for it,
right.
they don't have the understanding, they don't have the resources, that type of thing.
Mm-hmm,
Believe me, it took all three. None
mm-hmm.
of those could be missing. I had to have our family,
Oh,
our
you don't
household
have all that.
had to have all three
Mm-hmm, you
because
do.
it's a
Mm-hmm.
very expensive journey.
It
And
is.
and so all the sacrifices. I mean, I feel that there was just a lot that I had to give up, in my own life
Mm-hmm,
to, for a child like her that needed my undivided attention. And,
mm-hmm,
and she's my only now, our
mm-hmm.
only. And I was like, I told people, I'm like, listen, my life was on a completely different trajectory before she was born. And
Mm-hmm.
it just took another turn. And I'm just so grateful for, that I was the one that was,
And you had the desire to know more. How about that?
yeah,
You had the
yeah,
desire to know more.
right, yeah, because I'm
Mhm,
like, okay, God must have known that I was the right fit for her,
mhm,
and I was, and I understood it. I mean, because I mean, one of the main reasons why she was tested early, was because I had always suspected that I was ADD. And of
okay.
course, we didn't know anything about ADHD at the time. It was still being called
Mhm,
ADD at the time. And
mhm,
I had always suspected that I was. And
mhm,
so and I recognized some of the same symptoms in her,
mhm,
young.
mhm,
And so I had a full understanding, a full
mhm.
understanding of
Real life experience.
right, exactly,
Mhm,
exactly. So yeah,
mhm,
so every day I'm in full gratitude, and it just breaks my heart as to what would have happened, had she had not had it, as she had not had us. I mean, and believe me, she's very grateful too. She tells me all the time that she
mhm,
knows she wouldn't be where she is if it weren't
mhm,
for me. If
mhm.
um,
How's
you
she
know,
managing in college?
oh, she is doing great. I mean, she's doing so great. And she actually doesn't use any of the free
Oh,
resources in college, initially, because we made sure that she was connected to the department.
disability service. Mhm,
Yeah, yeah, for kids that have any learning challenges.
mhm,
And
mhm,
we were like, Simone, make sure you use it. Simone, make sure, and
mhm,
she may
mhm,
have used a little bit of it
mhm,
her first semester of her
mhm.
freshman year, and then she didn't really need it anymore. Now, of
Okay,
course, now she is not in like a heavy load science field,
okay.
science
Mhm,
major.
mhm,
But she's in liberal arts, but she absolutely loves her journalism
mhm,
curriculum. And
mhm,
so but she hasn't, I think she may possibly excuse me, utilizes the free time on tests. I think that's the one thing.
mhm,
But
mhm,
but yeah, I mean, she could literally go and take her test in like a private little quiet
mhm,
pod
mhm,
away
mhm,
from the class.
mhm,
All types of stuff, I mean, that they
mhm,
offer at the school. and
Mhm.
but she's doing great. She really
It
is.
sounds like the all the strategy and stuff y'all put in place as she was growing, matriculating through high school, it paid off at the end because that's the whole
Right.
goal. How's my child made to do? How are they going to function in the real world? That's the
Right.
whole. So I need to make sure things are in place where she's able to do that. Now she's able to self monitor. That's what we call that. She's able to self monitor. Is what that's called.
Right, right.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Right, right.
Mm-hmm.
So
Self monitor.
so what do you think school districts and educators can do to build trust in order to in the Black families in order to support Black families? Is there any that you think school districts could do?
That's a tricky question because a lot often, well, it's basically if I suspect a child has ADHD, or I'm not supposed to say that to you. I can
Oh,
say that Simone's not focusing, Simone's procrastinating, she didn't complete her assignments. Simone doesn't sit in her seat in class. I can start getting data together for all of those different things, characteristics, but I can't mention the word ADHD at all.
wow, wow,
It's against the law. So that's me. I mean, I'm
wow.
diagnosing. I can't diagnose
Yeah,
because
yeah,
I'm no
of course.
doctor.
Yeah, you definitely
And,
can't.
right. And the
Um,
parents and a parent could sue me for that. So I can't say that. I can tell you the
wow.
facts. This happened, this happened, this happened, this happened, this happened. And I can say those things on a regular basis, and suggest that you go see your pediatrician with that information. I can do that. Tell you to
Okay.
go see a pediatrician. But outside of that,
Oh,
I
okay.
can't.
Okay.
Right.
Now I get
Mm-hmm.
that. I mean, I totally get that,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
because yeah, bottom line, you don't have the qualifications to
Right.
diagnose,
Right.
so only a
Right.
doctor, the medical
Right.
doctor could,
Right.
diagnose.
Right. But I think
But
we probably could have more um training and stuff like that for parents who realize that children have these kinds of challenges in school. That's
right.
something we can do. But that's going to be the people that's already know that's accepted it. It's not going to be the people that are in denial. So that's the difference.
Wow, wow.
Mhm.
Right.
So I
So
think that
I'll go on.
I think that would be the challenge there because the people that would show up are the people that accept it and not the people that don't accept it.
Right. Exactly.
Because the people that
Exactly.
don't accept it, it's going to go over their head like, oh, they're not talking to me. That doesn't apply to me.
Right, right.
But you're going to show up. But you're going to show up. But like your
Right,
mom,
right.
she wouldn't show up because it doesn't apply to her. See?
So when you do have
Mm-hmm.
families who, I guess, show up to the school and they have that psychoevaluation
Mm-hmm.
from their doctor,
Mm-hmm.
it's because they pursued that on their own,
Mm-hmm.
specifically on their own.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like Simone was in DeKalb County school
Mm-hmm.
district, and
Mm-hmm.
DeKalb County had a psychologist
Mm-hmm.
on staff and someone that traveled around to the different
Mm-hmm.
schools. And he did his evaluation and then told us to take it to to her pediatrician.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, is it similar to that? What are you in, Douglas County?
No, I'm in Paulding. Now I'm in
Holding.
Paulding.
Do the counties, do they operate differently?
They do the psychologist does evaluation. They suggest that you can take it to the doctor. But
Hmm.
then, they based on the evaluation, they start with the services that the child might need, and then providing accommodations in the school.
Oh, okay.
They do.
So Paulding has psychologists that work
Oh yeah.
within school
Mm-hmm.
district.
And
Oh, okay.
she travels between schools also.
Oh,
Um,
okay. Okay.
mhm.
You
But
know,
all that's
initial
it's education evaluation because there's a difference
right.
between a medical and an education evaluation.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah. Initially, Simone was in the Fayette County School District, and they
Mm-hmm.
did not have. Now, I don't know about now, but
Mm-hmm.
this was back when she was. She's almost 20 now. And this is back when
Mm-hmm.
she was in the first and second
Okay.
grade.
Mm-hmm.
They did not have, a
Person.
psychologist that
I don't
that
doubt
worked
it back
within the
then.
county.
Mm-hmm. I'm
Right.
thinking, because I don't remember when I was in elementary school in Rockdale. I don't remember a psychologist being on staff that even floated. I don't remember seeing that until I got to the high school. Right. So
Right.
I don't that 20 years ago, no. Mm-mm.
Right,
15
right.
years ago, no. It might not have been because it seems like stuff just started happening
Okay.
with kids being diagnosed with different things.
Right, right.
Yes.
And we may have already answered this, the positive changes you're seeing in education for ADHD. What are some positive changes that you're seeing, and what gives you hope for the next generation of Black ADHD kids?
Um, I think that we're acknowledging it more
Okay.
and we're finding strategies that help kids
Right, right,
and um teaching the kids. We're teaching the kids more how to deal with their ADHD and how to monitor themselves.
right,
So they won't feel shame and feel like some kind of sentence they get.
right, right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I we've been speaking about like a lot of the misconceptions and stigmas and all that in the Black community, but it is better now, I will say, than
Mm-hmm.
just, yeah, like, 10 years ago. It is better. I am seeing more families, and it's more like, more times than not, is because they're younger parents, versus, just say my mom was born in the 50s.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so I would say this younger generation, just say millennials,
Mm-hmm.
they see it differently.
Oh, they do.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
so I am definitely happier to see the changes. And then the changes that I also see is just the changes in technology
Yes.
that really is helpful in education, like the Speechify app,
Mm-hmm.
which actually is like a guided reading
Mm-hmm.
app.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And Simone, she actually uses, I do not remember the name of the app on her phone, but it's
Mm-hmm.
perfect for her as a journalist, along
Mm-hmm.
with in class, where she can record the class,
Mm-hmm.
the audio of the class, and
Mm-hmm.
then it transcribes it
And give it to
immediately.
them, and able to put it on paper.
Right, right. And
You know,
so
surprisingly, it's hard to get kids to use that because we have all that technology on the laptops for the kids. It's
oh,
hard
okay.
to get kids to use that technology. They do
Oh,
not
really?
want people to see it. No, it's because it's even because we
Huh.
even offer to the kids that don't have IEPs. Any of them, they don't like to use that. For some
Huh.
reason. It's not that it's a
Wow.
good app. It's a wonderful app, but they fight to use. They fight about using that for some reason.
Right. That is wild. Yeah, because Simone she has a professor right now
Mhm.
that she just says that he's just a lecturer, and she thinks he is so boring. And I want to say she even said that even the tone of his voice is very boring. So
Mhm.
she is so grateful for
For
the
that.
app on
Mhm,
her
mhm,
phone.
mhm,
She's like,
mhm.
I wouldn't know anything. I would leave the class. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
I love the technology.
Hmm.
Mhm. Good.
Right, right.
It highlights, it'll boldface. I mean, it's really good.
Right, right. Exactly,
Mhm,
exactly. So yeah,
mhm,
thank God for technology now, so
mhm.
right, right.
It's great. I'm grateful for it. It helps a lot, everybody.
Right, right.
Mhm.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. Yeah, so we have come to our are at the end. And is there anything else you want to add, or anything we didn't go over?
Mm. One way that I see that ADHD show up in Black boys is impulsivity.
Oh, right, right.
I see a lot of impulsivity. Kids that they fight a lot
Wow.
and they don't know why they even, it's like they make decisions like this and not
Right, right,
rationally think about it. I see a lot of
right,
impulsivity. So if children are very, like even girls, impulsive, they do stuff, throw stuff across the room, they get mad and want to fight.
right.
Some of that might be ADHD also, because that's part of it.
Yeah, yeah, because that falls underneath hyperactivity.
Yes.
So, so wow, wow. You
And
know what?
let me tell you something. When they don't have an IEP and they're fighting all the time, they get suspended. But when they do have an IEP and they have a ADHD diagnosis, they don't get suspended all the time. That's the
Oh,
difference.
wow.
That is a benefit because your disability is the reason why you're impulsive. But if you say you don't have a disability, that means you get consequences of a regular kid does. Make sense?
Wow. Well, you know
So,
what I read about
mhm.
hyperactivity, impulsivity
Mhm.
in teen girls, where it shows up? It
Where?
sometimes shows up sexually. They'll make
Really?
impulsive sexual decisions, and in our community, we would call them our community will call them the fast girls, those little
Uh-huh,
fast
uh-huh.
tail girls and
I
stuff
never
like that.
thought about that.
Yeah, I read that, I'm like, wow. So, someone looking at them as
Promiscuous girl.
promiscuous girls, so it's like,
Oh,
wow, I would have never thought of that.
no, I've never thought about that.
Yeah.
The girls that talk a lot, um, I I see that a lot, but but they're not. There's no discipline, long term discipline for that. Maybe ISS or something like that. But the boys are suffering heavier consequences because they're fighting and stuff like that.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, and it's over.
Wow.
It's not like a one fight. It's like you're all. It's a over and over and over and over. You keep doing this, and then you don't know why. And you snap. It's like you snap real fast, and they get into fights a lot. I've
Right,
seen that.
right. Yeah, I can
Mm-hmm.
see that.
Mm-hmm.
I can see that. And that's probably one of the reasons why like a lot of girls are missed, because it's
Mm-hmm.
ADHD is associated more with the hyperactivity side.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I have never thought about that, but I am going to start thinking about that and having
Right,
conversations with
exactly.
my kids, my ADHD girls about that.
Right, right,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
exactly.
Mm-hmm.
But thank you so much for joining us for this conversation. I hope today's episode gave you clarity, courage, and maybe even a sense of relief. If you've ever felt judged by family, misunderstood by educators, or unsure of whether you're doing the right thing for your ADHD child, please know this: you are not alone and you are not wrong for seeking support. ADHD is not a character flaw, it's not a sign of limitation or weakness. And there's absolutely no shame in wanting better for your child than what past generations believed or understood. Every time you educate yourself, every time you advocate, every time you choose compassion over criticism, you're breaking generational cycles and creating a healthier future for your child. A huge thank you to my guest, Tangi, for sharing her insight and experience. Conversations like this help shift entire communities. And if this episode spoke to you, please share it with another parent, family member, or educator who could benefit. And if you haven't already, hit the follow, like, subscribe, and join our Beautifully Busy Mind community so you will never miss any of our content. Also, download my free guide, the Beautifully Busy Starter Guide. It is 10 is a free guide that is 10 holistic habits and supplements for ADHD kids. It's for the most part everything that I did, a lot of what I did for my daughter that helped to change her from a struggling ADHD student to now she's thriving in college. And so you can also connect with me on social media for daily tips, videos, and support, especially for parents raising ADHD teens. So thank you so much, Tangi. And
Welcome.
thanks.
Glad to be here.
Yeah, thanks everyone, and see you next time. And you can stay on, Tangi.
Okay.
Stop this recording. Do you stop? Okay. All right. So, yeah, thank you so much for I'm not sure if I'm still recording or not, but oh, well, there it is. Stop.